the shadow of inclusion and the quest for authentic spiritual authority. The assertion that many black cardinals, especially those hailing from Africa, might be operating under an illusion regarding their potential for ascension within the Catholic Church's hierarchy strikes at the heart of the complex relationship between the global South and historically dominant Western institutions. This isn't merely about individual ambition. It speaks to the systemic dynamics that shape perceptions of power and opportunity within a deeply traditional and politically astute organization like the Vatican. 1. The allure and limitations of symbolic representation. The elevation of African clergy to the cardinalate is often presented as a sign of the Church's growing universality and its recognition of the vibrant faith present on the African continent. These appointments are undoubtedly significant milestones, offering a platform for African voices within the highest echelons of the Church. However, it's crucial to examine whether this representation translates into genuine influence and a realistic pathway to the papacy or central power. The risk lies in mistaking symbolic inclusion for substantive power. While a black cardinal holds a prestigious title and participates in the College of Cardinals, their actual influence within the intricate networks of Vatican politics may be circumscribed by historical precedent, established alliances, and the subtle but powerful biases that can operate within any long-standing institution. The very act of their inclusion might inadvertently serve to perpetuate the illusion of equal opportunity, masking the deeper structural barriers that remain. 2. Unpacking the deeply entrenched political dynamics. The Vatican's operations are indeed characterized by a complex interplay of power, tradition, and geopolitical interests that extend far beyond purely spiritual considerations. To truly understand the limitations faced by African clergy, we must unpack these dynamics. Historical precedent and cultural hegemony. The papacy has been overwhelmingly European for centuries, creating a powerful cultural and historical inertia. This precedent shapes expectations, informal networks of influence, and the very understanding of what constitutes papal leadership. Unconsciously or consciously, this historical weight can disadvantage those from vastly different cultural backgrounds, curial power and institutional knowledge. The central administration of the Church, the Roman Curia, is predominantly staffed by individuals with long tenures and deep institutional knowledge, often rooted in European traditions and perspectives. Navigating this complex bureaucracy and wielding influence within it requires years of experience and integration into established networks, which can be challenging for those coming from outside this core. Geopolitical considerations. The Catholic Church is a global actor with significant diplomatic and political influence. The selection of a pope is often viewed through the lens of global stability, international relations, and the Church's standing in various regions. Historically, these considerations have often favored candidates from nations with significant geopolitical clout or those aligned with established Western interests. While the African continent is increasingly important, its influence within these global power structures may not yet translate into decisive influence within the Vatican's political calculus. Theological and ideological alignments. The election of a pope is also influenced by theological debates and ideological currents within the Church. Cardinals often align themselves with specific theological viewpoints or factions. African cardinals, while representing a vibrant and growing segment of the Church, may hold theological perspectives that are not always aligned with the dominant viewpoints within the European-centric power structures of the Vatican. 3. Dismantling the myth of a purely spiritual Vatican. It is a significant misconception to view the Vatican solely as a spiritual sanctuary, untouched by political maneuvering. Its history is replete with examples of strategic alliances, diplomatic negotiations, and the exercise of temporal power. This inherent political dimension continues to shape its internal workings. Strategic appointments to key Vatican positions, including dicasteries, departments, and nunciatures, embassies, are often made with strategic considerations in mind, balancing theological viewpoints, regional representation often symbolically, and loyalty to the prevailing power structures. Policy formulation. Church policies on a wide range of issues, from social justice to interfaith dialogue, are often the result of complex negotiations and compromises between different interest groups within the Vatican. Financial management. The Vatican's financial operations, while ostensibly supporting its spiritual mission, are also subject to political considerations and the need to navigate global financial systems. Media and public relations. The Church's communication strategies are highly sophisticated and politically astute, aimed at shaping public opinion and maintaining its global influence. African cardinals, operating within this complex political landscape, may find their spiritual authority respected but their political influence limited by these deeply ingrained structures and historical precedents. 4. The unlikelihood of a black African pope, a sobering assessment. Given the confluence of historical factors, entrenched power dynamics, and geopolitical realities, the prospect of a black man, particularly one from the African continent, ascending to the papacy or wielding significant central power within the Vatican remains, unfortunately, extremely improbable in the foreseeable future. This assessment is not based on prejudice against individuals but on a realistic appraisal of the systemic forces at play. The very structure of the Church, with its emphasis on tradition, its predominantly European leadership core, and its historical patterns of succession, creates significant barriers. The unwritten rules, the subtle norms, cultural understandings, and established networks of influence often favor candidates who are more closely aligned with the historical and cultural center of the Church. While the Holy Spirit is invoked in the papal election process, the cardinals who cast their votes are human beings shaped by their own backgrounds, experiences, and the prevailing political climate within the Church. It would be naive to believe that these human factors do not play a significant role in their deliberations.